Welcome to Module 4. In this module, you're going to be learning about aviation safety and security. Before we get into Module 4, let's talk about the last couple modules. So first, going back to Module 3, last week you guys learned about aircraft systems and the role of aviation maintenance. As you can see, aviation maintenance has a huge role to play. Now, a lot of you are yourselves maintainers in aviation, so you realize how big of a role you play to make this industry go on. I'll be getting to those blog discussions and assignments here later on throughout this week. And in Module 2, we learned about the aerodynamics and the science of flight. So we talked about the different parts of an aircraft, aviation, aerodynamics in general. And then we talked about aircraft design and performance, where I had you write a paper comparing and contrasting two separate aircraft. So we're going to talk just a little bit about APA writing. For some of you, you guys did really, really well. And for some of you, it's the first time you've tried it. So I'm just going to give you guys all just a little bit of feedback on APA. So we'll start there. First, I'm going to bring up a sample APA paper here. This is the same assignment, ASCII 202, Module 2, Performance Characteristics. And in this case, this example student, compared the Piper Cherokee with the Cessna 172. So first off, before we go into the APA portion of it, I realize there's a lot of military folks in here, and a lot of you folks wrote papers on the systems of aircraft, not necessarily the performance of aircraft. So in this case, this chapter specifically was talking about aerodynamics and the performance of aircraft, as in, wings and takeoff distance, landing distance, maximum gross weight and speed, etc., which some of you did, a lot of you did. But some of you also gave me the history of an airplane and told me all about the capabilities, as in the military capabilities, such as, the missiles or the guns, or, what it's used for as in a missionized scenario. So as we carry forward throughout this class, please try to keep this in a civilian world. And what I mean by that is, yes, bring in a lot of the military knowledge that you have, but keep in mind that this is teaching the civilian products and processes that are out there. So when you start talking about, for Air Force, AFIs and manuals, that speak to it in its civilian counterparts. So as in the FAA handbook, or the FARs, so the Federal Aviation Regulations, and talk about the FAA counterpart, not necessarily the military counterpart, because that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're teaching. Okay, back to this assignment. So in this case, we're talking about the performance characteristics between the two aircraft. I realize we've already done this assignment, but I want to show you some pretty big formatting things. First off, use the template. Please use the template that was provided earlier on in this class, and essentially replace that, because that's going to help you save a lot of work. So recognize here also that there's two different types of APA. One is for research papers, etc. So if you do that, you might do that later on in future courses, and especially in master's degree writing. But for this case, these are student papers, so it's a very distinct difference. And I provided you some resources in how to distinguish between the two differences. But the sample paper, the template that's provided, is a student paper. So one thing you'll notice is there's no running head in the front of it. And next, you're going to see that you're going to have the title, so double spaced right here, a space right here, and then you have the name. So this is a very specific format that's right there. This is the due date of the paper, and then here's the title of your paper, not necessarily Module 2, etc., but the title of the paper that you want to name it. And keep in mind that there's page numbers up here. Okay, next is a page break. So one technique is just to hit enter a bunch of times. So what I've done is I've highlighted here. You can see here, I've highlighted the paragraph function here, so this kind of tells me what all the formatting is, and I utilize this just when I'm formatting the paper, not when I'm writing the paper necessarily, but this way you can see all the formatting here. So here, to do a page break, instead of doing all of the enters, is you can just go to Microsoft Word here, go to Insert, Pages, and insert page break. Now I'm working off of a Mac. Microsoft on PCs is going to be very similar to this. So insert, pages, and page break, and that's going to enter a page break right here. And what that means is, if you format something up here, it's not going to affect everything that happens down here. So what I saw was, everybody formatted, or you formatted something and then you hit enter up here somewhere, and then it made everything off one space later on in your paper. So you can save yourself a little bit of headache if you just put a page break right there, and anytime you want a page break. Next, some of you, I've mentioned level 1 and level 2 headings. So if you go into the APA manual, it will tell you all about how to utilize those separate headings. But big picture is this is only a 3 to 5 page paper total, right? So that's the total amount of pages that we're going to be doing in this, and you're really not going to have a lot of subheadings in here because you just don't have the space to do it. So I don't recommend making a whole bunch of headings. However, you still have to have a level 1 heading up here on the top, and this level 1 heading is going to mimic your title. So just essentially cut and paste your title right here. It's going to be bold, capitalized, and centered. So some of you had a tab up here, a half-inch tab, and then it's centered, so it skews the whole thing off to one side. So make sure that that is not there. And then you're going to start with an indent right there, half-inch indent. And then this is another level 1 heading. Again, all of this here is not necessarily required and oftentimes not even desired, depending on how you have your paper broken up. And then this here is a level 2 heading. So a level 2 heading is a subheading within your level 1 heading. So that's how you use headings there in a nutshell. And I don't expect anything greater than a level 1 and potentially a level 2 heading, just based off of however you are breaking up your paper. Okay, next, when we're working our way down the paper here, your references section down here. Sorry, before we get to that, you should have a conclusion. So another level 1 heading with a conclusion or a summary of what you just talked about. So that's a good way of ending your paper on that. So again, if you just title it summary, that's totally sufficient, just summarizing your paper right there. Remember, I need a minimum of 2 pages, so 2 complete pages, not 1.5 pages onto a second page. So a minimum of 2 pages, please. Okay, next is your references section. So you can add a page break there if you'd like. References, again, centered in the middle of the paper with no indent, and then you're going to go right into your references. So remember, alphabetical and cited in accordance with APA. That the second line there, that's part of the same grouping, is going to be tabbed 1/2 inch, so indent 1/2 inch, and then like I said, alphabetical order. Okay, and then this is the proper way to cite in APA. Okay, so next is you have to have each and every one of these cited somewhere in your paper. So don't just list me a bunch of references and then write, what you're thinking in your paper. The purpose of the reference is to have an in-text citation somewhere that is so where you're specifically referencing the fact that you are talking about, and then use those references to back up something that you have already said, or a fact or figure or anything like that. So every single one of these lines, so in this case, Cessna 1977, you should have up here, so without having to go digging for it. Here's another one, Landsberg 1995, right here. So Landsberg, comma, 1995, that's your in-text citation, so the reader knows that they can go to this citation down in your references section. Here it is, B. Landsberg, December 1995, and know exactly how to find it. Also, since this paper is testing your knowledge on the course material, it's not testing your knowledge, but you're demonstrating your knowledge from that module, it would behoove you to have something sourced from that module. So in every module we have, you will have the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. In most of the modules we have, you'll have the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. Here's the correct citation right here, and this is the correct way to cite it. So take this, copy and paste it, and then utilize that. And then you should probably use a reference within that, or you could use a reference within that if you're backing up something that you are discussing in addition to your other references. But that's kind of showing me that you are applying the material that you've read from this module and applying it to your paper itself. So remember, your paper needs to include what we discussed in that module, because you're demonstrating to me that you understand the material that we've learned that week, and try to avoid breaking off in tangents and try to keep it nice and concise. I'm talking a lot about the papers right now because for Module 4, you'll again be writing the paper. Finally, regarding the last piece about the paper writing here in APA is try not to write in a conversational tone. So What does that mean? That means don't write as if you're just sitting here talking to me. Remember, this is academic writing. I've provided a couple resources earlier if you need help into seeing what academic writing means or writing in academia. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to use big words and elaborate sentences or anything like that. It just means avoid conversational tones while you are writing. So you're trying to avoid things like discussions using slang or abbreviations or anything like that. And anything that you have abbreviated, make sure that it is, or an acronym, make sure it is defined somewhere earlier on in your paper for a reader who doesn't maybe not understand the vernacular, which is very difficult for those of us in the military because we know we abbreviate pretty much everything. Okay, that's all I've got on the papers, and let's talk about the course material for this week. So this week we are in Module 4. And Module 4, we're going to be talking about aviation safety and security. So this is kind of broken up into two parts. Aviation safety is one part, and aviation security is the other part. So let's dive into that real quick. So the readings and resources are going to have resources on the safety piece as well as the security piece, and it's going to start with the security piece of it. Okay, so we'll talk about signs of terrorism, and then also in the blog discussion, we're going to be talking about aviation security in general. The next piece is the writing assignment, which is going to be aviation safety. So let's dive into the readings here, and in the readings, you'll see that we have a readings and a presentation. We're going to first talk about TSA strategy and the TSA in general. That's going to be that hyperlink there. And then next we're going to talk about airport boundaries and physical security. And then we'll be talking about security guidelines for GA operators. Okay, those first three bullets and resources are going to be your security piece of this. The next two are going to be your safety piece of this module. So the security parts are going to be very important for your blog discussion, and the safety piece is going to be very important for your written paper. And this is where I've seen folks in modules kind of go awry in the past. So this first portion is going to be your NTSB investigations that have happened in the past for previous accidents or incidents. You're going to research an accident or an incident on there, and then you're going to apply the next bullet, which is the safety management system from the FAA. So very briefly, I'm going to pull this up here, and if you see this is what is called the Safety Management System, or SMS. Okay, so this is a great resource. This is what a lot of general aviation is going towards, and then here you're going to get the explanation, how to apply it, etc. On the left-hand side here from the FAA, you can go over to, I believe it is right here. Here it is by industry type. So if the accident that you looked for, or you're researching, that's part of your paper, is part of 121 operations, i.e. Scheduled airline carriers. So think your American, United, Delta, etc. That's a part 121 operator. You're going to look at this piece right here. If you are looking at part 91 operations, so you're thinking general aviation stuff, so think of crop dusting, think of your normal person with a small aircraft, etc., or business jet aviation. That's going to be part 91, and then the other part is going to be 135, which is specifically more business jet on-demand charter type operations. So the big ones are going to be 121 and part 91. If the accident that you're looking at is part 121, so a commercial accident, this would be a great section for you to go to for SMS for 121 operators, and that's going to give you a lot of material for your paper. Part 2, or if you are doing something that's part 91, so something that's smaller aircraft, general aviation, etc., you can go down to this part, part 121 operators, and get a lot more data there. So I highly recommend that you look in this section here for your paper. Okay, next we'll go over to the paper itself, and I will, I just got myself dug up there. Let me get it. So here is the paper itself. Okay, this paper is on improving aviation safety. So again, a 2 to 3 page paper, not including the title page and the reference page, and we already went through all the APA stuff from Module 2. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions on the APA or what our expectations are with that. So remember, this paper specifically It says explain the accident findings and the considerations, and consider the role of the NTSB coupled with effective SMS principles in preventing similar accidents from happening. So what I'm looking for you to do is look up an accident report, read the report from start to finish, and then apply or explain the findings of it. Consider the role of the NTSB and explain that and how the NTSB plays a role in this accident or incident, and couple that with the effects of effective SMS principles, which we just discussed, and how we can apply SMS principles to prevent a similar accident from happening. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in this paper in a nutshell. Remember, 3 scholarly references there as well. One thing to avoid that I've seen in the past in this paper, you want to cite pieces from the NTSB, from the accident report. However, the entire paper is not a cut and paste of the accident report itself. Okay, so when you turn in your paper, look at that Turnitin score and see how much matches. Now, I'm not looking for a specific number, but if the entirety of your paper or the majority of your paper is just the NTSB report copy and pasted into paper format, even if it's referenced correctly, that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm not looking for a copy and paste of the original NTSB report. So that's my foot stomper right there. Finally, a lot of you have asked about the rubric. So here is the rubric and the grading criteria. It's located at the bottom there, and this is kind of what I am looking for. So organization and context, you can read the text there. Knowledge and comprehension, this is where I'm testing, or not testing, I'm looking to see if you understand what we discussed in that module. And then I'm looking for you to analyze, evaluate, and apply what you've learned to the assignment. And then style and mechanics is specifically more the APA style. Are you able to write in APA format and cite correctly? The last thing I will say is when you're finished writing your paper, read the paper back to yourself and ask yourself, does this make sense? So spelling errors or typos, or just simply, does the sentence that I wrote down on paper, does it make sense when I read it back through? So proofread your paper, read it out loud, and make sure that what you are writing actually makes sense to a reader. And I know sometimes you're rushing through a paper and you're trying to get it all turned in and you're excited when you're done with the paper, but take the extra couple minutes to make sure that you don't have something silly written down that you didn't necessarily meant to say, or that doesn't make sense or doesn't convey the point that you are trying to make. All right, so that's it for Module 4. Let's make it a great week, and I look forward to reading your papers at the end of this week. As always, let me know if you have any questions.